Want to learn a foreign language but you can't choose which one? My name is Jamie, I'm a language coach. Let's talk about everything that you need to know about how to choose which language to learn. And keep watching because at the end I'm going to share with you the number one thing that you need to remember where all of these points are concerned. The first thing to consider about how to choose which foreign language to learn is if you have any experience with other languages. Now this can mean a bunch of different things. For example, even with your native language, it'll be easier for you to learn a language that's more closely related to your native language. Now I already have a video going really in depth with this concept, so I won't spend too much time here. But the basic idea is if you are just starting out, you might want to consider a language that is either closely related to your native language or a language that you have some experience with. For example, if you studied a language in school, even if you don't feel like you learned a whole lot, you probably have a lot more in your memory than you think you do. And it'll be much easier to activate that knowledge that you already have somewhere in the file cabinets of your brain than it is to create new knowledge. And even if you didn't study a language in school or you haven't been immersed by any kind of language, something as simple as watching a lot of anime might help you to learn Japanese. Again, even if you don't feel like you learned a whole lot, you'd be really surprised by how much your brain consumed and is just waiting for you to learn how to use. Or if you don't want to learn those languages that you have a little bit of experience with, it'll be really easy to look at that language and take a look at which languages are really similar. That can be another helpful way to use knowledge you already have and apply it to like a cousin language or something like that. So if you studied Spanish in school, then it'll be easier for you to learn something like French or Italian or another really closely related Romance language. Alternatively, if you want a challenge, do the opposite thing and choose a language that is completely different from any language that you already know or have any inklings of knowledge over. So if you are a native English speaker and you have experience with Spanish from school, then you might want to go to something like Mandarin Chinese, which is a wildly different language and it's a good challenge. In my experience, I would recommend sticking with something a little bit more closely related, but if it makes you happy, I'm not going to tell you not to do it. The next thing to know about how to choose a foreign language to learn is which languages you have more access to. Now, when I say this, a lot of people think, oh, I'm not around people who speak any different languages other than my native language, so what am I supposed to do now? Thing is, you have a lot more access to foreign languages than you may think. For example, there are free apps like Tandem and HelloTalk that exist just to connect native speakers who are learning your native language. So if, for example, you are a native English speaker and you want to learn French, it's very easy to go onto one of these apps and find somebody who is a native French speaker who's trying to improve their English. You can text with them, you can have phone conversations, you can have video chats with them. In the 21st century, you'd be really surprised at how much access you have to different foreign languages. And this means it's much easier to choose a foreign language. Now, of course, there are two categories here. There are languages that are much more commonly learned and languages that are a lot less commonly learned. And of course, the languages that are a lot more commonly learned are the ones that are going to have much more access to them through different apps and resources and websites and people. Fortunately, where that's concerned, I have a whole language app search on my website. Check out the link below in the description where you can search for language learning resources based on language. When you search for different languages, it'll be abundantly clear how easy it is to learn a language like Spanish and how it's a lot more difficult to learn a language like Belarusian. This way, you can make more of an educated decision on what language that you want to learn based on which languages present more or less obstacles for you. Because while it is amazing to learn less commonly learned languages, and I want to absolutely support that, it is going to present a lot more obstacles if you have no experience with language learning in the past. And in my opinion, when you are just starting to learn a language, you want to get rid of as many obstacles as you can because you want to build up that confidence and learn how to manage those obstacles before you're presented with them. The next thing you need to know about how to choose a foreign language to learn is considering any cultural things that you may be interested in. For example, if you really love dancing to salsa music, or maybe you're really into ancient Roman culture, or you're really interested in the history of beer and you find yourself learning a lot about Germany, if you have these really strong driving passions, absolutely follow them. You can use these passions to not only get you motivated to start learning the language, but you can also use the vocabulary and things that you learn to help with your hobbies. Honestly, combining the language that you're learning with things that you're interested in outside of language learning can be a whole other video topic, so I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But again, just like I mentioned in the first tip about using languages that you already have experience with, even if you don't realize you have experience with them, it can be so easy and so much fun to use the extensions of those hobbies and interests that you already have to combine them with language learning. This kind of motivation can really drive your language learning very, very far. The next thing to know about how to choose which foreign language to learn is based on any life goals that you have. If you have any long-term goals that can benefit from learning a foreign language, that can also really provide a lot of motivation and important goal setting to benefit your language learning. For example, if you're really career-oriented and you eventually want to find yourself in international waters and doing a lot of international business, then Mandarin Chinese might be something really beneficial to that goal. Or even if you don't have big career goals and you just want to go to an Asian country and you're really fascinated by all the history and culture of Asian countries, that is plenty enough reason to learn Chinese or Japanese or Thai or any number of Asian languages. Or maybe you've always wanted to attend a French culinary school, you could benefit from learning French. Or if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer and can benefit from learning some basic Latin. Or if you just want to bump up your resume in general. If you're looking, you can always find a reason to learn a foreign language. It's just a matter of choosing the one to learn. And then finally, the most important thing to consider when you're looking at all of these points and deciding how to choose which foreign language to learn is learn the language that you want to learn. Every day I see language learners invalidating their decision to learn a language and finding reasons why it's a waste of time or they can't do it or any number of reasons. My response to that is that you are allowed to do things just for fun. You don't have to have a good reason. You don't have to have a logical reason. You don't have to have a career reason. For whatever reason you want to choose a certain language or learn languages as a whole, that is a valid reason. Even if your family speaks a certain language and you feel like you should learn that language first, but you're really interested in another language, that choice is still valid. Even if you really want to learn a specific language, but it's really difficult and there are easier languages for you to learn, you can still learn that more difficult language first. Because in the end, not only is it better if people learn languages as a whole, but as a language coach, in my experience, the thing that keeps people learning languages consistently long-term and being successful in it is finding languages and strategies that make them happy. The worst thing that you can do is try to force yourself to learn a language that you don't want to learn using a method that you don't want to learn. If you want to learn a language as a hobby, then you need to treat it as a hobby and not a job. Sure, at work you're paid to do things that you may not want to do. That's not the case for learning a language. That said, if you now know what language you want to learn but you don't know how to start, I would suggest going to this video. In this video, I share with you my advice for how to choose a beginner language app. This next video will give you a great head start now that you are confident about the language that you have chosen. So if you're ready to start learning a language in a way that makes you happy and is productive to your goals, I will see you in that video.